All right, everybody, how you doing? So we're going to learn about freelancing. I got about 15 points we're going to cover, everything from personal experience. So point number one, the web is the key to freelance. I'm talking about web technologies, HTML, CSS, so on. Why is the web the key to freelancing? It's not because the web technologies are inherently better than, say, developing a native iOS app or a native Android app or an IoT device or some AI backend implementation. The reason the web is the number one choice for freelance is because that's where the jobs are. For every small business, and you're going to be doing mostly with small business, for every small business that needs a custom AI implementation or IoT device development or a custom Android development, etc. For every company that needs that, there'll be 10,000 who have some website that they need to update or build or be built or something. That's just the reality of the situation. This applies particularly to freelancing because as a freelancer, you're going to be dealing with small business, generally speaking. Big companies don't deal with small, independent freelancers. Next point, distinction between freelancer and contractor. These are two different types of independent professionals. So a contractor is basically a short-term employee. It could be a 1-month contract, a 3-month contract, 6-month contract, etc. And as a contractor, essentially you're told when you're going to work. You're probably going to be working within a team. They're going to tell you what technology you're going to be working on. You'll probably have one task to do amongst a sea of other things that they're involved with in terms of their development processes. Whereas a freelancer, you're much more free. You're going to set the time. You're going to have a much bigger choice in terms of the technology and the specific implementations. You're probably going to be working alone. You're probably not going to be you're not going to go into work anywhere. You set the tone. You go in, you bid on the contract, you evaluate, you bid on the contract. If you get the contract, you say, I'm going to deliver by the first draft by this date. And then I'm going to deliver the second draft this many days later. You dictate that as the freelancer. This is the big difference between the freelancer and the contractor. It's largely a personality choice. Contractors can make a lot of money, and they will make more money. They should make more money than they would if they were working full-time for a company doing the same work. Why? Because it's short-term, you get paid more. Just like short-term rentals pay much more per night at the rental versus if you're renting for a year or two. Capiche? All right. So the lessons in this discussion here apply more or less to freelancers, although they also apply to contractors as well. All right, so how do you proceed to become a freelancer? So number one, you want to learn the web stack, the foundations of web development. That includes HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, a bit of PHP, and that's just because a lot of businesses have PHP investments already. Some SQL, which means relational databases. If you get those, you can now hit the road as a freelancer. You don't need a degree to be a freelancer. What you do need, though, is a portfolio website. So that's the next step. You got to build a great looking portfolio website. This is your calling card. This is what people can be referred to. Hey, I'm a web designer. I build sites. I can help you with your e-commerce situation. I can help you with your WordPress, etc. Check out my site. That portfolio website better look good. It better look really good. Even if the skills you are selling are more code-oriented, you still have to make sure that portfolio site looks amazing. Why? Because they're going to judge you based on that. Even if you're selling coding skills, it doesn't matter that you're selling coding skills. They're going to judge you based on the look of the site, how professional it looks. There's no other way for them to judge, right? If people are hiring you, the vast majority of them will have no idea between good code and bad code. They won't know the difference between a JavaScript and a Python or an HTML or a CSS. They don't even know what it is. So they're going to judge you based on how professional that portfolio website looks. Make sure it looks really good. If you don't know how to design, use a template or hire or partner with somebody who knows how to design, but make sure it looks good. As I suggested just a few minutes ago, WordPress. WordPress is huge in the freelance space. Why? Because WordPress is huge for small business. Doesn't mean you have to become an expert at WordPress, but just understand WordPress a little bit. Understand about self-install, about the one-click installs, about using WordPress.com versus self-hosting. Understand, just how to set it up, what themes are, the basics of themes, how to install them, how to uninstall them. Learn the basics of modifying them, the user types in WordPress, the basic stuff, what the plugins are. You don't have to be a master, just understand a little bit about the landscape. One of the trade-offs you have to make as a developer, whether you're freelancing, contracting, or whatever, you have to understand that there's so much out there that you don't want to get caught in the trap of becoming a perma student. You want to spread it out a little bit, spread it out. So you have your key fundamentals that you should learn, and then you have all this other stuff, which is the vast majority of stuff out there. You learn when you have to. I call it learn on a need to nerd basis. Very important concept. So don't get stressed out trying to learn everything. Just learn the key fundamentals and then get into the game, start making money, get paid to learn. In my freelancing career, especially in the tail end, I would walk into a particular project or particular client with no expectations vis-a-vis what technologies I was going to implement for the job. I would often learn a new language or a new framework or a new library based on the needs of the job. And if you're properly trained in the fundamentals, it's easy to learn new stuff. It's expected. Very, very important fact about software development. You have to embrace and understand that you're going to learn new things on a regular basis. It's not a big deal. It's not daunting. It's not something to scare you. Trust me, once you've learned your second and your third programming language and you've learned your first library and your second library, they're all very similar in many respects, like learning to drive a car. You'll just pivot to one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, and you'll be fine. So one of the things you have to do as a freelancer, you have to get really good at tracking your time and judging your time. This is going to make a big difference as to whether or not you're profitable so that you don't underbid for the work that you're going to do. So you got to get good at that. So what are you going to do in the first few projects? Of course, you're not going to be very good at it. You have to start tracking everything. The time you spend talking to clients, time you spend sending emails, time actually building things. The big mistake that people make when they're first starting out, they don't count all that other time that they spend fulfilling the contract that has nothing to do with sitting in front of the computer. So time tracking is huge, very important, very important. Just as a little side promo, in my freelance course, I provide templates on contracts and proposals, and I provide, which is probably the most valuable template you ever see in freelance, is my time tracking template. Several people have told me just that time tracking template itself taught them so much about freelancing. So anyway, whether you use mine or not, doesn't matter. Time track. As you track a few projects, what happens is you become very, very good at judging, and you become super accurate at a glance. You'll be able to go, oh, this project's probably going to take me 20 hours, or this project's going to probably take me 50 hours. You'll be able to judge that much more accurately when you are diligent about your time tracking. If you're first starting out, when you do bid on a project based on the number of hours you think it's going to take, you should probably multiply that by 2 to 2.5 times. That's probably going to be a more accurate assessment of the actual time you're going to spend on a project. So as I said, being a web professional is the key to freelance. It's like most of the jobs are going to be there. Yes, I'm sure people will say, I got a job doing iOS as a freelancer. Most of the iOS jobs, again, will be as a contractor, very different things. Anyway, so it's about the web. But the web is not all equal. There's 4 different specializations in the web field, we'll call it. So you got the classic, well, not classic, you got the web designer, which is more a broad-based professional. So you got to know, as a web designer, you got to know your HTML and your CSS well, so you can do responsive sites and so on. You have to know a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of PHP, but where the web designer is different from the other web professionals, you also have to have a good understanding of the landscape out there in terms of content management systems. You have to understand a little bit about WordPress, maybe be aware of Drupal and its streams, You have to be aware of e-commerce solutions like for processing like Stripe, PayPal. Just don't have to be an expert. Just know what's going on there, the implementations. You got to know about the hosting and domain names and newsletter systems and maybe understand some low code and no code implementations. Again, you don't have to master these things. Just be aware of it so you're aware of options. So when you do approach a prospective client, you have an idea of what you can access to get the job done. You know, Wix and Squarespace, those are all viable tools depending on the needs of the job. That's the web designer. Now, you also have in the 4 specializations, web professional specializations, you also have the front-end web developer. This is somebody who's strictly building a functional app based on web technology. So they'll use a React, they'll use a Vue, they'll use an Angular. So they're developers. They're actually writing a lot of code. They're developing functionality, whereas the web designer is more about branding and marketing. There's some functionality there, implementing newsletter, something, implementing WordPress. But the front-end web developer is actually building functionality. Different game. The front-end web developer has to have a much higher level understanding of the coding, the JavaScript, and the client request response model, and all that kind of stuff. It's a different game. It's a different game. Not too many jobs freelance as a front-end web developer relative to what you're going to get as a web designer. So the other type of web professionals, you have then the back-end developer. Again, somebody whose job is they're just writing code to build some sort of app, to build functionality. Again, pure front-end, pure back-end web developers, not too many freelance jobs because small businesses, which is your typical business that's going to hire freelancers, they don't need pure front-end or back-end typically. I'm not saying always, but typically. But what they're going to need is web designer, and the last one is the full stack web developer. Somebody who does the back end and the front end, a little bit of both. If you're getting into freelance, become a web designer or go full stack. That will open up the widest range of possibilities. You have to understand a full stack doesn't necessarily, full stack web developer doesn't necessarily need to have the in-depth knowledge of a front-end library like a React or a Vue, but they may need to know how to do basic CRUD operations on the web. If you don't know CRUD, that's part of the foundations of coding. CRUD is just basically being able to capture information in an HTML form and sending it to a database on the server. So to wrap up, the web is where the freelance action is, and of the 4 specializations I just mentioned, you're looking at web designer and you're looking at web full stack developer. Those are the 2 specializations that's going to get you the jobs. So how do you start the business? Well, you got your portfolio site up. What you want to do is go out and do the 2 to 3 small free little contracts for a local coffee shop, a local nonprofit, whatever. You just want to get your hands dirty with some code, get your name out there, practice working with clients, and then you can take those projects, put it on your portfolio website, which looks amazing, and then you can start talking to people, start networking, good old-fashioned networking. This is the way to do it. This is how I have people work in my mentoring program, my bootcamp. This is the process. They learn the fundamentals, they put together a portfolio site, they go out there and do the 2 to 3 small free freelance contracts, and they start networking, and I support you along the way. We give you guidance, we have training, you can get coaching, etc. But anyway, that's the process. You got to get out there. You got to start mixing it up. You got to start speaking with people, letting people know what you do. You could start looking at the sites like Upwork and whatnot. That might work for you as well. Everybody's different. Some people have had great success on those sites, and other people not so much. Depends on you, but you got to figure it out. The point is, you got to get the word out. You got to start letting people know that you're ready to work. You're ready to rumble. You're a pro now. Let's go. So good old-fashioned networking. So when you're first starting out, like any business, you have to expect it's going to be slow at first. So you don't want to jump into it boots 2 feet in. You want to tiptoe your way into your freelance business. I'm from Canada, so we have frozen lakes in the winter. So you don't go running out on the frozen lake on the ice early in the season. You test to make sure the ice is solid enough. So you got to walk very carefully. Same thing with freelancing. You can't expect you're going to get all kinds of contracts and jobs at first. You have to transition into it. So if you have a job now working full-time somewhere, develop your skills, put up your site, network. When you get your first sites, do it on the weekends, work on the evenings. Get used to the process. You got to slowly get into it because there's going to be ups and downs. Some people I've had join my program where they come in, they got like 5 clients. They don't know what they're doing, so they need the training. And I have other people who come in with the skills, but they don't have the clients, so they're working with me to develop their ability to communicate with people and to get the word out, etc. So you have to expect when you're first starting out, it's going to be a little rocky. You know, you might not get your first client for a few months, then you get your first client, then you work on that, and you're still learning the process. You're learning to work with clients. You're learning to develop in that context. And then you might not get another client for 2-3 months later, etc., and so on. So you have to expect when you're first starting out in freelancing, just like any other business, it's going to be slow. There's going to be inertia. There's going to be some bumps in the road. So you have to plan accordingly. Better to have as a freelancer many small clients than 1 or 2 big clients. One of the biggest mistakes noobs make is they're attracted to this whole illusion, this idea that they can get the big juicy client that will pay all the bills and make a ton of money with this one client. You don't want that because first of all, you won't get them. Second of all, if you do get them, it happens once in a while, you will be their bitch. They will control you and they will sense this and they'll start pushing you around. You don't want that. One of the reasons to become a freelancer is to be free, right? Is to have choice. And how do you create choice? Through diversification. You want to have many income streams, meaning you want many clients. Better to have 10 small clients where they're worth $1,000 a month to you than to have 2 big clients of $5,000 a month. Why? Because if 1 of the 10 clients gets to be a pain in the butt, you can give them the boot. You can fire clients. Let me tell you, one of the great satisfactions in life is being able to fire clients. So put yourself in that situation where you're chasing after. You want to get many small clients rather than trying to waste your time and chase after big clients. As a freelancer, you always have to be prospecting. You always have to be looking for the next client, even you're working on jobs. So if you got 2 or 3 clients and you're working on these projects for them, you probably maybe put 10% of your time into more marketing, more clients, more word of mouth. You got to keep doing this, keep mining for clients. Because, you may be busy right now, but then you hit a drought. So if you're not mining, you don't want to get that process going. You want to get the word out. You want to continuously be mining for clients, keeping that momentum going so you get more and more clients. If you're worried about getting too much work, you could hire people. You could partner with people to take the pressure off you. Or you could just stretch out the delivery dates accordingly. But anyway, long story short, mine for clients. Always be prospecting for clients because you want to keep that flow of new clients coming in. Again, that flow of new clients, that variety of clients puts you in a far better position in many ways, including negotiating position, right? Because when you got many more clients in the pipeline, you can take a lot less BS from prospective clients that may be giving you trouble. It happens once in a while. I'm not trying to put out an aggressive vibe, not at all. But you have to understand that, one of the points of being a freelancer is to have that choice to work with people that work well with you. So you may not work with client A very well, and doesn't mean that they're jerks. It just means you guys don't mix. That's all. There's no big deal. Nothing personal, just business. So one of the ways to be sure that the project with the client goes really, really well, one of the key things you have to do at the get-go is have a really solid contract. The contract is there to define the scope of the work and how the work will roll out so everybody understands what to expect. Disputes occur when people have a different idea about what to expect in the project, whether it's the deliverables or how the stuff is delivered. by having a properly structured, detailed contract. So everybody signs it, everybody's aware of it. This avoids a lot of disputes down the road. And if you avoid disputes, everybody's happy. If you got happy clients, they come back as returning clients. Returning clients are great because they know you, you know them. The working relationship is far better. It's just much better. So again, this is very much established by having a solid contract where everybody knows what to expect. So make sure you have good contracts. As I suggested earlier, when you're first starting out any business, and freelance is no exception, you have to expect it to be a little slow at first and inconsistent. There's always inertia when you're starting anything new. So you got to plan out, you got to strategize for this inertia. So that means if you have a full-time job, don't quit your day job. Transition when the work becomes such as a freelancer that there's enough volume to replace the money-wise to replace your full-time job or allow you to survive, then you can quit the full-time job and jump into that. Don't just quit your full-time job and start doing freelance, because there is going to be a lot of dry spells and you don't want that pressure on you. And you know what I found? Whether you throw a ton of money or a bunch more effort, that inertia period is just like a universal. You may be able to speed it up a little bit by going hard and full time, spending a ton of money, but most of the time you're still learning your craft. You still got to figure it out. So you got to give yourself a bit of runway to get that going. So yeah, so expect inconsistent, slow ramp up time to get your new business up and running. Another truism about being a freelancer is you have to expect your clients to be inconsistent in the project itself. So what does that mean? That means you come to an agreement with the client, you got a contract, say I'm going to deliver the first draft on June 20th, you indeed deliver on June 20th. In fact, you do it better, you deliver on June 18th. And you say, okay, let me know, give me feedback. And then you're waiting 1 week and they don't respond. You wait 2 weeks and they haven't responded. You send an email, hey, I'm still waiting some feedback from what I delivered. And they go, yeah, sure, we'll get back to you. And then 3 weeks passes, they still haven't gotten back to you. This happens. Why? Because you're dealing with small businesses. Small businesses have limited resources. Small businesses, the owners they wear many hats. They're doing this. So you're going to have to expect some delays as you go when you're developing, when you're doing freelance work for any business, really. So what does that mean? Many clients, you cycle them. You deliver the first draft and you wait. And you say, okay, here's the first draft, let me know. And then you just continue with the next client. And you may have to wait a week or 2 or 3, and then they come back. And that's why you have many clients, so that you can keep your time filled. And you fill up those spaces where you're waiting for your client to respond to you with, needed feedback. They may need to provide images or who knows, a text copy, whatever information you need from them to continue. During those lag times, those periods of times when they're not responding to you, you're busy doing other client work. Again, as I suggested, as a freelancer, you're going to be working with small businesses 99% of the time, unless you have direct personal contact with people working at larger organizations. Why is this the case? Because big business will not work with small business, because big business, people work there. The last thing they want to do is risk their reputation within their company by working with some unknown entity, some small freelance contractor that nobody knows about. Because if you mess up as a freelancer, they're going to look really bad, and they don't want that. So bigs will not work with smalls. Sometimes big or medium-sized companies will approach you for a proposal, and all they're doing is they're trying to mine you for information. And they'll gather a bunch of quotes from small players, small independent contractors or freelancers, and then they'll take that and they'll use that as free information, and then they'll bring it to the big company they intended to work with in the first place. Say, look at these bids we got here. And they use those as negotiating tools to drive down the price, or to be able to mine information so they get a better price ultimately with the big contractor, the big company they intended to work with in the first place. So if a big company approaches you and they want you to put together this fancy proposal about this job that you might get, don't do it. Just say, because a lot of times putting together these proposals will take a lot of time, and you're going to waste a lot of time. I've been caught there. I've been caught there once, twice, and that was it. I refuse large contracts unless they pay me. And you have to understand that When a large company approaches another large company to develop a project, they pay. The big company will pay the other company just for the proposal. There's a lot of work in putting together these proposals, and these proposals have value because you're doing research about how to solve their problem, and you're presenting your research. So you got to be paid for that. So don't waste your time chasing big contracts. As I said before, expect to work with small companies. Again, another advantage is, as I suggested before, better to have many small clients than a handful of big clients. All right, that's the end of this presentation on freelancing. Everything I taught here, by the way, is born out of personal experience. I'm not some academic, somebody who just bought a bunch of books or something. No. This is from years and years of freelance and contract experience. And there's more, but this is long enough for a YouTube video. If you found this video interesting, let me know in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. I appreciate it. You have any questions, I'll try to answer them. And if you want to learn more about my mentoring program, you can take a look at UncleSteph.com. And I also have self-learning independent freelance courses you can take a look at as well. All right. Cheers.